I found out my best friend, had been living my life for 3 years. My job, my boyfriend, my name, and the worst part, everyone liked her version of me better than the real one. So let me start from the beginning, because if I just tell you the ending, you won't believe me. I barely believe it myself, and I lived it. My name is Mara, or at least that's the name I was given. The name I built everything around. The name I loved once. I grew up in a small city in Ohio, not the kind of small that feels cozy and warm, the kind of small where everyone knows everyone's business, judges your choices, and never let you forget where you came from. My parents were decent people, I think. They worked hard, they paid the bill, but they were also the kind of people who didn't know how to love out loud. Affection in our house was implied, it was never spoken. So, from a very young age, I learned to find my people outside of home. And the most important person I ever found was Kara. We met in seventh grade. She sat next to me in English class, and she smelled like strawberry lip gloss and dryer sheets. And she laughed at everything I said like I was the funniest person she's ever met. Nobody had ever made me feel that seen before. We became inseparable immediately. The kind of friendship that happened maybe once in a lifetime, if you're lucky. We finished each other's sentences, we called each other's parents, mom and dad, we cried together at stupid movies and stayed up until 3 in the morning talking about our futures like we were planning them together. And in a lot of ways, we were. We're going to New York, she told me once, sophomore year of high school, lying on the floor of my bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Both of us. We're going to get an apartment and you're going to write for a magazine, and I'll do, I don't know, something fabulous. I laughed. Something fabulous? Whatever it is, it'll be fabulous because we'll be there together. I held into that dream like a lifeline for years. Here's the thing about Kara that took me a long time to admit, even to myself. She was magnetic, genuinely terrifyingly magnetic. When she walked into a room, people turned, not because she was the most beautiful person there, but because she has this energy, this pull, like she was the center of gravity to everyone's conversation. I love that about her. I also, looking back now, feel it in a way I couldn't name it yet. Because people who are that magnetic can choose anyone they want to orbit around them. And I never stopped to ask myself why she kept choosing me. We went to different colleges. It was the first week crack in the foundation. She got into NYU. I got into a small journalism program in Chicago. We promised each other it didn't matter, that we'd visit, that we'd call every day, that distance was just geography. For the first year we actually kept the promise. Then the calls got shorter, the visits stopped. We were both so busy, so swallowed up by our new lives, that the thread between us stretched thin without even us noticing. By junior year, we were down to texting. By senior year, it was just birthday messages and the occasional reaction to each other, Instagram stories, and I grieved that quickly. The way you grieve things that fade instead of break. There's no clean wound, no clear moment to point to, just a slow, aching absence where someone used to be. I graduated, I moved to New York anyway, because that had always been the plan. Even if Kara was no longer part of it, I got a tiny apartment in Queens. I got an entry level job at a small digital media company called Linden. I started building my life piece by piece on my own. I was 25 when I met Daniel. He was a photographer who freelanced for the same company I worked at. He had dark hair and quiet eyes, and he brought coffee to meetings without being asked, which sounds small but felt enormous. We dated for 8 months before I told my parents about him. That's how private I became. I kept things close, kept things mine, because I'd spent so many years losing things that I'd started to hold them tighter. Daniel was patient with me in a way nobody has ever been. He didn't push, he didn't demand, he just stayed. And slowly I let him in. By the time I was 27, I thought I had it all figured out. Good job, good man, good life. I should have known better. It started with an email. I was at work going through my inbox when I saw a LinkedIn notification. Someone had endorsed my skills. Her name was listed as Kara. My stomach flipped. I hadn't spoke to Kara in almost 3 years at that point. I clicked on her profile without really thinking, and I stopped breathing. Her profile picture was one I recognized immediately, not because it was Kara's face, because it was taken in my apartment. I knew that window. I knew that light. I knew the little chip in the paint on the wall behind her. I sat there staring at my screen for like a full minute before I could process that I was seeing. Then I started scrolling. Her LinkedIn said she worked at a company called Mercer in New York. She'd been there for 2 years. Her title was Senior Content Strategist, the same title I'd been working toward at my own company. I told myself it was a coincidence. People have the same career path, work in same cities. People take photos in windows. I closed the tab and went back to work, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I went home and I searched for her on every platform I could find. What I found shook me so deeply I had to sit down on my kitchen floor. Then I built an entire online presence, a blog, an Instagram, a newsletter with apparently thousands of subscribers, and the content? It was my life. Not inspired by my life, not similar to my life. No, my life. She wrote about growing up in Ohio, feeling invisible. She wrote about moving to New York alone and being terrified. She wrote about falling in love with a quiet man who brought coffee to meetings. She wrote about a best friend she lost touch with, framing it like she was the one who'd been abandoned. She had my stories, my memories, my voice. She was writing them as hers. I understand something about that moment because it's hard to explain if you never had it happen to you. It wasn't just anger, it wasn't just betrayal, it was something deeper and more disorienting than either of those things. I was a it was a feeling like I'd been erased. Like someone had reached into my life and decided they could do more with it than I could. And the coolest part was that she wrote about it. She was right about one thing, to be specific. People loved her version of my story. Her newsletter was beautiful. Her writing was emotional and raw and compelling. She had taken the rawest part of me and polished them into something that thousands of strangers connected with. And none of them knew her name wasn't on those stories by right. I called Daniel that night and told him everything. He was quiet for a long time and said, Mara, the blog she has, the one with the newsletter. And I said, yeah. He said, I've been reading it for about 6 months. I was like, what? He said, "Oh, coworker sent it to me. She thought I'd like it. It's about someone who sounds a lot like you." I thought it was just coincidence. I thought you'd maybe told her stories at some point, and I was like, Danielle, did she fight about you? I went, yes, he said quietly. She wrote about meeting someone, a photographer. She described our first date almost exactly. I couldn't speak. He said, Mara, I didn't know it was her. I didn't even know you two were still. I said, we weren't. That's the point. We weren't in contact. She didn't get these stories from me. She invented herself into my life. I didn't sleep at night. I lay in bed running through every memory I had of Kara, looking for the signs I'd missed. And once I started looking, I found them everywhere. The way she used to listen to me talk about my dreams with this intense, focused attention that I'd always interpreted as love. The question she asked, where do you want to live? What kind of work do you want to do? What does your ideal relationship look like? I thought she was being a good friend, the best kind who really wants to know you. But now I wondered if she'd been taking notes. I reached out to her though through Instagram the next morning, just 3 words. We need to talk. She read it immediately. I saw the title, the little scene notification appear. She didn't respond for 8 hours. When she finally did, she said, Mara, oh my god, it's been so long. How are you? Like nothing, like everything was normal, like she hadn't spent years quietly building a second new life out of the bones of mine. I sent her a screenshot of her blog, the one about the quiet photographer with dark hair, the one about the first day I recognized word for word. Can you explain this, I wrote. This time, she didn't respond at all. I want to be honest about what I did next because I'm not entirely proud of it. I spent 3 days gathering evidence. I went through every post she'd ever published. I made a document slide by slide, comparing her stories with emails I'd sent her years ago, with old blog posts of my own, with journal entries I'd shared with her when we were a teenager because she was my best friend and I trusted her with everything. The overlap was undeniable. She borrowed my aesthetic or my vibe or my general life circumstances. No, she had taken specific moments, specific conversations, specific feelings I had described always to her. My mother's hand smelling like flower. That's what I'd written in a journal when I was 16 and missing home. My hand smelling like flower. Clara had published that sentence in a post about her own childhood. My mother's hand. My words. I sent the document to 3 people. First, Daniel, because he deserved to know the full picture. Second, the editor of the publication that had recently featured Clara as a writer's watch. Third, I sent it to Clara herself with a single line on the top. I know everything, and now other people will too. What happened next moved faster than I expected. The editor responded within an hour asking for a phone call. Kara responded within 2 minutes of my messages, and what she said spoke something open, broke something open in me that I don't think had ever fully healed. She didn't apologize. She said, always had so much, Kara. You just never did anything with it. I did. Read that again. She was doing me a favor. She believed that taking my voice, my private, my brief, and building a platform on top of it was somehow more legitimate than anything I might have done myself. She decided at some point that I'd never be able to pinpoint exactly that my stories deserved a better teller. And correcting herself. Oh, it was crazy. Kara's newsletter lost 70% of its subscribers in 4 days. Her blog went private, her LinkedIn went quiet. She sent me one more message about 2 weeks after everything fell apart. Kara, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I did love you. That was that part was actually real. I read it 5 times. Then I typed back. Loving someone and pursuing them are not the same thing. I hit send. I blocked her. I posted